Hey everybody, hello from fall break. Thank you for the work you did in the forums. Your conversations were good. I think some of you did some really excellent work in your sort of back and forth with each other, and you seem to have gotten it for the most part. A couple of you did your math wrong. I'm not exactly sure how that happened, but if you had trouble with that, you can talk to me in class, raise that as a question. When things were said to be reverse coded, if you gave yourself a 2 and it was a number that was supposed to be reverse coded, then you were supposed to code it as a 4. And if you gave yourself a 3, then you leave it a 3, right? Because you can't sort of do the opposite. Um, and some of you scored like 10s and 12s and things like that. So I think you probably just didn't like divide by something at the end. In any event, I think you learned a lot about yourselves as communicators, and I think you had some really interesting things to say. Some of you saw these as really very good, accurate representations of yourselves and how you communicate. Others of you thought, well, it didn't really do a very good job of explaining who I am as a communicator. A few specifically things that you guys said were you talked a lot about public speaking, which of course would make sense since there was an anxiety measure there. And I like the way a lot of you gave each other advice about that. That was really cool. I think some of the really interesting things that you said that lead us into the next part of this lecture and this unit on identity are, I'm just going to quote a couple of things. Someone said, I feel like a lot of people change the way they communicate based on the context of a situation. There goes context, right? We've talked a lot about that. It's no wonder we wanted to answer it depends to a lot of the questions. That's why it's so hard to read certain people in their attitudes, because they act differently depending on the context. Somebody else said, it's as if unconsciously we change our communication styles. I think those were both interesting, and I think they're very useful for us to think about because they help us to make a transition into the next thing you're going to do, which is for class on Monday. You're going to read the piece by Goffman and the chapter on personal identity in the textbook. Ultimately, Goffman is going to talk about who we are in different situations and how we adjust ourselves to different contingencies and different people, and how we present ourselves to others to get people to think positively of us. And so Goffman moves us away from just thinking about you as having a communication style to thinking about you as a person who changes their style depending on the person and the situation that you're dealing with. So that's sort of a movement away from autonomous actor and into socially constructed selves. And that's the direction we're going to go next. This is due Monday, the Goffman assignment. The other thing I want you to think about, so we've looked at autonomous actors, and we've seen that the way people who take an autonomous actor approach look at you as a communicator is to say, this is who you are, and therefore how you will communicate. And we've already begun to critique that a little bit by saying, sometimes those things are situationally or context dependent, and we're going to move further down that critique on Monday, and Goffman is going to help us do that. The other thing that I want you all to think about is something that somebody else posted, which was, I agree about a teacher calling on you in class when you haven't raised your hand. They're just looking for a particular answer, and if you don't give that answer, they just stare at you, which makes for an awkward situation. So this is sort of changing the subject a little bit, but a lot of you did talk about sort of that public communication anxiety that happens in class. And I want to address that really quickly here because I think our classes are doing really well in terms of people participating, and participation is a big part of your grade. But what I also have noticed is that in each class there's about 4, 5, 6, 7 maybe people out of 35 that are participating a lot. And I think some of that has to do with the fact that maybe a lot of you feel a little bit anxious about raising your hand in a class this big. So on Monday, I'm going to ask that the regular high-level participant people don't raise their hand. See if you can get through a whole class period without speaking. Leave that space open for other people who are letting you do the work for them because you're so sort of eager to participate. And I'm going to try to do some things a little bit differently in order to give those of you who are a little bit worried about that some extra time to process and think about things in order to be able to participate better in class. Because it is a big part of your grade in class, and I do want you to get better at it and more comfortable with it. Well, that's as much as I have to say for now. I hope you have a great fall break, and I will see you in class on Monday. Thanks.